Are we ready? Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Hi, everybody, we're back.
Hi. We're back in
If y'all are
Finder's
still
Chips.
tuned in.
So the next question is, why are some trans people upset with being called transgenders?
I'm gonna let y'all. That's all y'all.
First, I have to say that it doesn't upset me, because I understand it usually comes from a place of just not understanding that it does upset people. And for the longest time, it was the correct way. But it was the correct way in the same way that the blacks was correct. And that's why I think a lot of people get upset, because we're not the transgenders, we are transgender people. The same way, if you're talking about somebody with like cerebral palsy, it's not they're a cerebral palsy, it's they are a person with cerebral palsy.
Well, oops.
That's okay.
It's just
Break
water.
it all, why don't you?
Well, it's tea. It's well, and I will also say that it's also used to lump us all into one general category as well. Because that's generally how we see it used. The transgenders, or they're using our bathrooms, blah, blah, blah. And that's generally how it's used. It's all lumped into one category. When we are transgender individuals, when actually we're just human beings who happen to be trans.
Yeah, I think so much of it is just based on how are people using this term.
Right.
And I think it's used commonly enough in certain circles to dehumanize people who are transgender.
Exactly.
Than to use it as just, I don't know, descriptive or as an insider term. There's a certain amount of coding that happens here, of like what kind of language is used. More often I see the issue with transgendered, the ED in there, which just is odd because it's like, is someone mailed? And it's like, I don't know, in a package sent in the mailbox. No. Or femaled.
Or lesbianed. Or gayed. Or Irished.
I've definitely been Irish.
Nobody waved a magic wand over me and went, "You're transgendered."
So yeah, if you're looking at terminology, because we've already said language is messy and confusing, and we keep on getting new ways that language is being used or new terms, figure out where is that language coming from. Is it coming from within a trans community or from without? Is it being used in support? Is it being used to attack? Is it being used medically versus legally? All of that kind of stuff.
And there's also a basis in language itself, because, for example, if you go on to Hindustan Times and you read an article, that's a news outlet for India and Pakistan, and usually their articles are in English because India has umpteen million different regional languages, and they use English and a couple of others as sort of a catch-all. But the proper translation for so many of those languages is transgender, just because of the way their sentence structure works.
Right.
So it's not being used either from inside the community or from outside as an oppressive thing. It's just language.
It's a translation thing.
Yeah.
And typically, I don't get offended when I hear this, really, because I do so much education and so much teaching. I look at it as a teaching moment, as an education moment. I was having a conversation on the phone with somebody yesterday who was concerned about an employee, and they used those terms. And I said, "Can I educate you?" And I even asked her, "Would it be okay if I educate you for just a second on some of your language to help you?" And she was very open to that. And she said, "Thank you for doing that." So, because I don't want to offend anybody.
Well, there's a huge difference between someone saying, "I have an uncle who's a transgender," and someone saying, I have an uncle who's a transgender.
Right. Context is everything.
Yeah.
Inflection is everything. Yes, agreed. But as we see, unfortunately, when we lose it, let's say we lost a trans woman last week to violence, and the news articles when they first came out, they misgendered her, they misnamed her, all of that, and we'll see the community just go into an outrage over that, and really, honestly, it is send an email to the editor of that paper, send an email to the writer of that article, and do some education. If they're not responsive, if they don't take your education, as a tool, then we have a problem. But I've had this happen. I've written to a reporter, or I've talked to a reporter an article, and I said, look, that's really not the correct. And they'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And then they'll change that.
Say thank you so much
Right.
for your in-depth article. I learned
Right.
a lot. Can I make a suggestion?
Exactly. So this knee-jerk reaction, it has its place, but it needs to. You need to stop and think before you react. And I'm just as bad. So, but I've had to learn. Okay, I'm a teacher. I'm going to teach rather than react.
I picked up a wonderful concept from my university's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I will not say what university that it is because I'm not representing them right now. But I know some of you are watching, so hey, or will watch. But it's a wonderful concept called the Platinum Rule. So most of us know the Golden Rule: treat others as we would like to be treated. I like the Platinum Rule, so a little bit more rare and more valuable. Treat others as they want to be treated.
Yeah.
To practice that empathy, because I've known plenty of people who say who want to be treated politically incorrect, and so they use the golden rule to justify. It's like, well, I don't care if someone calls me Janet or whatever, even when my name is whatever. It's like, well, start thinking about the other person. So extend it beyond the golden rule, platinum rule. What makes that person feel respected, feel seen, feel cared for?
That kind of ties into the whole the love languages.
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to take a note of that.
Yeah. Well, and in our support group meetings, we deal with people from every walk of life: trans, cis, straight, gay, lesbian, young, old, and over the years in doing this work, I've learned that my first reaction to somebody is not necessarily, it shouldn't be the predictor of who I think that person is. You need to get to know them. But every single person has a good quality and has good qualities, and sometimes they're dealing with their pain by lashing out at people, and because they're deflecting their own pain onto somebody else, and sometimes you've got to just kind of get past all that and say, let's figure out where this is coming from. And you just have to get that thick skin and say, okay, I see you're angry, and it doesn't matter who they are. I have to do it outside of our world all the time, and I have to figure out, okay, where is this coming from? And usually it ends up being a very positive thing. A lot of times it's just how they were raised, or whatever. But we have to get past those barriers. That happened with me with a gentleman at the Texas Capitol this year. Fighting the Chick-fil-A bill. He was on their side, I was on my side. But him and I were able to sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation, and we learned a lot about each other. That we're both dads, we both have families, we both have people that we care about. We're both fighting for the same thing. I'm fighting for my people, you're fighting for your people. We're both fighting for the same thing. But why can't we just actually have a conversation on this level? And we did. We talked for an hour. So that's how change happens. You've got to get past all that stuff and be able to just look at that person as a person. Just like we want to be looked at as people, they want to be looked at as people as well. And they want to be respected as well. I may not respect your view and your bigotry, whatever, but we're still people. And we still have to work on this planet together.
Mhm.
We have to live together.
Which includes the accountability.
Mm-hmm.
One of my mantras for a long while now has been honor the intent, address the impact.
Exactly. Thank you.
That you can still
Yes.
remember the positive intent that someone may have had,
Mhm.
and with all the positive intent, you can still have a really negative impact.
Right.
So remember both. If you're experiencing the negative impact, you can remember the humanity behind it.
Right.
And humanity behind it does not excuse that someone was disrespected or harmed,
course.
etc.
Yep.
I'm
of
writing
course.
that down.
Yep.
You want to move on to the next one?
Next.
Sure. What is that next one?
What made you decide to take the actions you've taken so far in your transition? Hormone surgeries, social transitioning, or lack of any of these?
I'll start. I just. It's hard to say because it was 9 years ago now. So, I was very lucky and very privileged that I had Susan, and I had people in my life who loved and supported me. This is before Trans-Cendence, and I felt like I had a support system around me that could help me through this process. But I think for me it was just this is it, or I'm done with life, period. Something has to change. Something had to change in my life. It had to. I felt like I was going nowhere. I felt like I was nobody. I felt like I did not fit in anywhere. Even in my 40s, I didn't feel like I fit in. So it's odd because now I'm like part of a community and I'm completely different than I was before. And I'm just grateful that I did take the steps. I got top surgery. I have not gotten bottom surgery. And I will just say, disclaimer, I do not want bottom surgery. I have no intention of getting bottom surgery. My dysphoria does not circle around that part of my body. My dysphoria was around the top part. So I had to have top surgery. Not all trans men are that way. That's just who I am. That's just Finn. So, yep.
For me, every step along the way has been fleeing fear. I've likened it to being terrified of heights, but then you realize your building's on fire. You can either jump out of the second-story window or you can burn to death.
Exactly.
For the longest time, I was cross-dressing in shame. I got so afraid of feeling that shame forever that I had to start doing it publicly. I then got so afraid of feeling the pain of not having a body that fit me that I started doing hormones. And the same with surgery. I got so afraid of not surviving the dysphoria that I had surgery. And I hope I'm past those big fears.
I still get apprehensive walking into a men's room in public. I still do. Maybe it's just a lingering fear from when I started transitioning, but it's also a fear of the way society is now. That I go into a stall, so I'm worried some man is going to perceive me as something or somebody different because I go into a stall to use the restroom instead of standing and peeing, and I'm worried they're going to look in that stall and see something.
You're one of those freaks that goes into the bathroom and poops.
Oh no!
That's what I think when somebody goes into a stall.
Yeah, but when you're a female going into a male's restroom, you don't know what goes on in there. Although I will say I miss clean bathrooms. I miss clean bathrooms.
I have a story about having to use the stall. So, went to one of the local bars. I'm not going to name which bar, but I had to go and use the restroom, so I go into the men's restroom, and they have one urinal and also crammed next to it one stall with no door.
No door. Oh no.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna be really quick. And of course, you know, the door to the bathroom doesn't lock. And so, like, I get done, I stand up, I've just pulled up my pants and underwear, and this guy walks in, and as I'm zipping up in full view of the door,
Oh.
and he looks right at my crotch, because that's where my hands are, because I'm zipping up. And I'm like, we're just not gonna address this.
Nope, look down, keep walking, go wash your hands, be done.
I went to the sink, he went to the urinal, we didn't say a word.
I've actually been in a female restroom in a bar that had no doors. It doesn't happen very often, but it did. I was shocked and scared. So I can't imagine how you must have felt.
It's very, like, nerve-wracking to just not see a door on the stall because it's like, danger, danger.
Oh, I would have turned around and walked out. And I would have gone
needed to
somewhere
pee.
else. I've done that. That's why I suffered from many bladder infections when I first started transitioning, because I would hold it too long. And I wouldn't go to the restroom at work at all. I would wait until my lunch break, and then I would go to the Jack in the Box across the street, and then I wouldn't go the rest of the day. And because of that, I was getting kidney infections and bladder infections.
Well, that's one of those statistics that they talk about in that in the NCTE survey is
Yeah.
the shockingly high number of urinary
Urinary tract, bladder, and kidney
issues.
infections.
Kidney stones. Yeah.
So, as a non-binary person, that's a great question actually for non-binary people about public restrooms.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer if you don't.
Well, I was gearing in my head to answer other stuff, and so it's like, oh wait, now I have to think of this other question. Yeah. Where I really like to have, like the family restrooms, the single stall, like gender neutral restrooms, etc. Because there's no presumption of whatever genitalia, whatever gender, whatever clothing, any of that kind of stuff. Because either like restrooms designated either male or female, it's like just a little alien. So when people point out, it's just like, this is that people use whichever, or are afraid that having the special restroom or whatever for trans folk. It's like, well, it's actually nice for us non-binary folk to have one, and just kind of regardless of gender.
Right.
Plus, also all the other accessibility features of restroom. That's actually a good tactic to get or to advocate for gender-neutral restrooms is for accessibility. Just greater accessibility for people who need to go in for a medical reason, who want to have a little bit more of a private space when they have to do insulin injections, etc. Just like there's a certain sense of safety. And it's not that complicated. Like most people's homes have a single, like have a single unit.
Every time I see a single one-holer, as we call it, in the trans world, one-holer with a lock on the bathroom door that has a gender sign on it, I just want to rip the genders. Why?
So
why does a one-holer have a gender sign on it?
Some states actually have potty parity laws. This was a
Really?
project, yes. This was a project back when I was in Utah, and I was trying to advocate for a gender neutral restroom, right over by the counseling center where I was interning, and I discovered that there was a Utah potty parity law that you had to have. It was in the building codes that had a certain occupancy. You had to have a certain number of toilet fixtures and a certain number that were designated male and designated female. the idea was in order to increase accessibility, primarily for people who are female, in order to reduce the lines that were there. So that meant that even if you're building installed single-stall restrooms, you still had to designate a certain number of them, male or female. It's an old, outdated, unnecessary law.
Oh yeah, yeah. For
That
sure.
actually slows down lines. If anyone could just go in, it's like
Yeah, this church that Susan works at. I mean, they have a men's room right here around the corner, and to be honest, it really needs to be made into a closet because it's even too small to be a bathroom. Literally, the sink is this big, and I'm not kidding. You can't even wash your hands in the sink. It's in the corner. It's that big. The toilet, you have to crawl around the door and then try to close the door and then go to the bathroom. It really needs to just be made into a closet. But the other day when I was there, I almost, when I closed the door, I almost ripped the men's side off of the door. Just to see if they would notice. Just to see if anybody would even notice. Because the women's room is right next to it, and it's a single holder. It just makes absolutely no sense. A funny story real quick. So I was at QT one time, it was last year I think. I was at QT, and because I know that QT is like a safe space to go to the bathroom, I just feel comfortable there. And so I'm in QT. And if I walk into the men's room and all the stalls are taken, I will walk back out. I'm not going to stand there and wait. So I'll walk back out, blah, blah, blah. So all they were taken, then I walk back and I walk around the store and I go back in. They're all still taken. I'm like, what the hell? So I look at the women's room and I'm like, I didn't see anybody come in or out of there. So I opened the door and said, hello? Nobody answered. I said, oh, score. So I went in the women's room and I just used the restroom real fast, washed my hands, walked out the door. As I'm walking out the door, here comes this old cowboy in his cowboy hat, sees me walk out of the women's room, and looks at me, and I'm in there. And I'm wearing a trans rights shirt.
Of course you are.
He's like, have a good day.
Well, it seems unfair, really, because when we're on trips for my church, with my youth,
Oh, yeah.
if all the guys have gone to the bathroom, they're single use, in a bathroom, in a gas station, a lot of times they're single use, male and female. Then my girls will start using the male, and nobody thinks that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nobody thinks that's strange, but suddenly if you're trans, it's strange.
Right.
I don't know what you could be doing, and you could be Rumpelstiltskin making straw into gold for all we know. I don't understand. I would love it if you would.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't have any issues with like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Putting
we'd
cherry
have all the
bombs
money
in
we
the
needed.
toilets. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, yeah.
I don't mind
Are
for
we
me
on
to
the
be
next
laying
question?
on the
I think we should
toilet.
probably go to the next question.
I can't seem
We
to
can
find
go
a
to
kind
the
I
of
don't think we're going to get through all of these.
Yeah.
So no.
Oh no.
Well, we didn't even have anything in there about bathrooms.
No.
So, yeah.
We went all the way there because that's us.
So what do you think the reason is for the recent perceived increase of people of all ages coming out as trans or non-binary?
Because of us.
I think it's,
One word: visibility.
yeah,
Call it visibility.
visibility normalizes,
Yeah.
and being normalized
More resources.
lowers hatred and fear.
Yep. Lots and
And,
lots more resources. Yep.
The internet is a huge boost.
Mhm.
There is a doctor, everybody here knows her. I don't know if she wants to say her name, so I won't. I'm sure she probably wouldn't care. I can't think of her name. That's another reason I won't say it.
From Genesis? Or
No.
Oh, okay.
But in the 80s, she had a support group.
Oh, Dr. Gartrell?
Yeah.
I mean, Cotterly.
No. Cotterly, yeah.
Really?
That's-
She's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had a support group for gender nonconforming and cross-dressing men.
Yep.
And she started it up, and not too terribly long into it, it had gone from a couple percent trans
Mm-hmm.
to over 80% trans.
Yep.
And that was because of the internet.
Yep.
At the same time the internet came out, people could go online, they could talk to other people and figure out, oh wait, this is me. So just being able to have that language has greatly increased the number
Yeah.
of people.
Dr. Connolly is amazing. I mean, she's retired now, but I just did a panel with her at Planned Parenthood. We've
Yeah,
been friends
I-
for a while now.
I did
so.
the one year before.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's the first person to start a support group in the Dallas area
Mhm.
for gender nonconforming and cross-dressers.
She
And then
worked with-
Trans-Cendence came along, and then, yeah.
and she worked with P-Flag for
Yep.
a long time. She's great.
Yep.
Shout
She's
out.
amazing.
Shout out to Rita
Dr.
Connolly.
Connolly! We love you! Yeah, she's on Facebook occasionally.
Yes.
All this winds up really impacting how we study the topic of transgender and gender in general, because like the terminology was so different because it was transsexual or transvestite, cross-dresser,
Yeah.
etc. And generations will use that differently. So when you do research that's supposed to demonstrate, like, oh, what's like, what are the trends? What are the like health trends or any stuff like that? Suddenly, you can't just say transgender because you've lost everyone that has said transvestite before, or non-binary, genderqueer, etc. Absolutely fascinating to see, like, who suddenly now calls himself whatever label because finally they have something that accurately describes it. It's that whole we had a whole discussion before we started filming here about labels and comparing them to colors. That in a in a world where there's only red and blue, but then you still have a spectrum of colors that exist between red and blue. Eventually, somewhere in the middle, you want to start calling it something else. But if you just don't have any words for it, you're just kind of forced to call yourself, well, I guess I'm slightly more red, so I guess just a really bluish red, whatever.
Right.
Or in my case, just a really effeminate male. Right? That was like, okay, that's fine, except that it still didn't match up with other people who were who very much identified as men and were very effeminate. It's like it's just at some point it's like it feels like I want to call myself something else.
Well, and as far as people coming out too, I mean, I think politically we have completely changed in the last 10 years. And that it's ironic that it began with HERO in Houston, the Human Equal Rights Ordinance in Houston, and it began there. And it began with the people saying that men were going into children's restrooms. That started the conversation. Even though HERO didn't pass, people started paying attention. And they started fighting for their rights more, and they started fighting for their rights. And it just started building across the country and then across the world. And now politicians are talking about it, openly talking about it, and fighting for rights for trans people, whereas that wasn't happening before. Or they were trying to have conversations, like, say, in California, like Jameson Green was trying to in California. But no politicians were brave enough to say anything about it. Now we've got trans politicians, elected officials, who are fighting for us. And that's happening more and more and more. Last year in the election, by the filing date last year to run in the United States, we had, I think, 648 LGBTQ candidates across the country, from lesbian to non-binary. That was triple the amount that has ever happened in this country for people running for office. So, and I think 2020 we'll see more. And it's getting those people elected, being able to, and I think it's helping our young people see, I can be who I am. I don't have to stay in a closet anymore. And seeing people like us that they can mentor, that we can mentor them.
The important thing to remember is that it's definitely a perceived increase. It's not like human
absolutely.
Biology has changed.
Absolutely.
There's always been a spectrum. There have always been people at every end and every point between.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes me. Whenever people say it's like, oh, traditional roles or traditional genders or whatever, it's like, whose tradition?
Right.
And
who made that tradition? Right.
And it's just like, one, just because something is old doesn't necessarily make it better.
Right.
But then, even if it is something that that makes it better or more valuable, goes back and back, and you have so many different standards, like norms that are different from today's standards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And ancient religions that bend gender, etc. Like old bodhisattvas in through Buddhism, also with Hinduism, etc. Like Guan Yin is a female personification of a male god. It's like there's definitely some transness that's happening there.
Right.
And one of the indigenous religions of Vietnam, there was a lot of gender bending that happened there because it was primarily, I guess, male-bodied, whatever, priests that were representing femininity and bringing forth the femininity of this goddess.
I love one of my favorite lines in Tu Wong Fu, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, is at the very end when the guy says, it says something about the founding fathers, and the little hippie guy says, "Wigs." I just thought that was like perfect. Perfect. That was the perfect line.
Speaking of perfect, it's a perfect segue into the next question.
Ooh,
I love that, Ginger.
Ooh, look at this.
Which we already talked about it quite a bit before. Is why is representation in the media so important? And the follow-on question of what is your opinion on cis people playing trans people? And we touched on that a lot in response to a question online earlier.
Okay.
Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to that?
I think we covered a lot of the media stuff earlier. I do want to make a little comment on the previous question, though. Because with the fact that there is this perception that suddenly all the trans people are coming out of the woodwork type of thing, what comes along with that perception is the perception that, and we went through this exact same thing in like 2000 to 2010 when the homosexuality was becoming more socially commonplace. The idea that people are identifying as this thing because it's cool and it makes them special. But the reality of it being that people today just have more freedom to explore their gender. And some people explore their gender and then come to the realization that they are in fact cis. And so then they drop the identity of being trans, but they've now been able to come to that conclusion fully better understand their gender and all that stuff. The downside that comes with it is you have the people who do go through and medically transition or start to medically transition and then come to that conclusion, but now they have to detransition to attempt to undo the changes to their body that they've already done. But
which is only, I'm going to say this, only 1% of the trans community detransitions. Only 1%. Less than 1%. I'm putting that out there because you see articles all the time about, well, this person detransitioned.
And a lot of that is the media, like
hyping it up,
hyping all of it up, sensationalism. But because of that, it causes concern for on the people who are sofas, who are like, then they're reading all these things, and then they're like, well, are you sure that you want to do this? Are you sure you want to get that surgery? Because you can't undo it.
Which is that's a fine question to put out there. It is. I mean, in my opinion, it is. Because people need to understand. My voice, it will never go back. Even if I stop taking hormones the rest of my life, my voice will never go back to where it was. Ever. My hair will not grow back. I have lost my hair, period. It's not growing back. You know what I mean? Those are things that young trans people need to know.
That it's not just this magical pill thing. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
and
those
the-
are great questions.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember because I was trying to remember if this particular episode of the podcast had come out or not. I think it has, but we were talking about the fact that some trans men that they knew were trying to tell them, if you're going to try testosterone, you need to try it and see if you like it. And you can't try testosterone.
Yeah.
It makes permanent changes to your physiology.
It's
You
also
don't
not an
try
overnight
it.
fix.
No.
It's not an overnight pill. It takes years and years.
Which means for people who are transitioning, being patient, but then also for the people who are absolutely frightened, especially when
Right.
they come, like somehow the conversation comes back to, oh, kids are going to transition and like against their parents' wishes and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, so, and get a better picture of what that process would actually look like, because I think people think that a 13-year-old will be able to walk into a doctor's office and immediately have like
Full-blown surgery.
Yes.
Exactly.
Just
and
like that
start
doesn't-
on, please. It
Like,
doesn't work that
On their
way.
lunch break, they skip school for the rest of the afternoon.
Right?
Come back as the other gender. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even worse, that people seem to think that parents are forcing children to do this, and there's no forcing any child to do this. It's
Seriously,
Or-
parents can't even get their kids to eat vegetables. How
Or
are you
clean
getting
their
them to change,
room.
Jen?
or clean their room. Are you kidding?
Or the idea that it's going to be just a whim, especially
Right.
with young children. It's like, well, my little Betty thought she was Spider-Man or whatever. Does that mean she's going to transition? It's like, well, no. And even if they were to do hormone replacement therapy, that would still be months. Like the magical thinking of kids shifts from week to week.
Right.
So
Right.
they're not going to want
No.
even if some even okay, fine, I'll go ahead and prescribe this. Wouldn't. It's
Yeah,
like
grab people.
2 weeks from then, a kid that's not actually trans will say, "I'm done with this."
Right.
Especially if it's getting on testosterone. It's like, you want to do what with a needle? Like,
Exactly. I hate them now.
Yeah.
I hate needles. I gotta do it every couple of weeks.
yeah, it's like it's a commitment, and it's a big scary thing. And even for some people who are transitioning, to reference Chase Ross, because he talked about it in one of his videos, he actually stopped testosterone for, I don't remember the period of time, but he stopped testosterone for a while because he perceived that the changes were happening too quickly. So, but one of the things that was happening with it was one of the things that does happen if you go off of hormones is the fat redistribution will go back.
Yep.
So when he got off of testosterone, after a while, the fat redistribution changed and his jawline softened up again, and
Right.
people were misgendering him, and so he got back on testosterone. But like, he hadn't been on it for very long. It had only been like maybe a year, maybe less. He has a video on it. You can watch it on his channel.
Well, and the thing is, you can work with your doctor to raise or lower your levels to your comfort level. Like my doctor, because I'm 9 years in now, I'm on what he calls a maintenance dosage. I have to take it for the rest of my life, but I don't have to take nearly as much as I had to take, say, 2 or 3 years ago. Mine is just a maintenance dosage now. It's to make sure that my hormone levels are staying kind of level, and I'm not having any freak, moody episodes and stuff. And,
Yeah, like you're not on the same dosage that I'm on.
No.
With being just in my second year.
I do 1 cc a month now. That's it. And I was doing 2 cc's when I first started.
Well, and
So-
that's also has to do too with what your body
Blood pressure
has.
and-
So,
Yeah.
for instance, Finn's a 52?
52.
52-year-old man, and the dosage you need as a 52-year-old man is going to be different than the dosage you're going to need as a 32-year-old man.
Exactly. Or a 22-year-old.
Or a 22-year-old who's had a hysterectomy
Right.
and has no ovaries to combat the estrogen.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that a doctor takes into consideration, which is why you need to go see a
A
reputable
doctor.
medical practitioner.
Don't listen to your friends and order it from Canada
It's not
or
a good
Mexico.
idea, guys.
You just have to get it fixed later. Just telling you. I know lots of
Avoid
nurses and
rage.
doctors who have had to fix people. Yeah, because their buddy said, "Oh, just use this dosage. We'll get it from you from Canada." And they've had no blood work, no test, no nothing.
It's not good.
There's a lot that can go wrong.
A
So
lot.
Please, please. And I know that there are people that are in situations where they're not insured and just like have
support
lots and lots
family.
of barriers. So I get that. When possible, have a doctor help you.
And if you can't find a doctor, contact Trans-Cendence. www.transcendence.org. Contact us because we are all here to help you. All of us. Contact VNO at Transfield Guide. We're all here to help you. Transcendence, we have lots of resources on our website. There's doctors, there's therapists, there's voice trainers, there's, everything, even dentists. So,
If you're not on there, we will help look.
yeah.
And that's trans-cendence.org.
And it doesn't matter where you are in the country. We will help you find wherever you are.
And I'll put links in the comments as well, but the URLs are also at the bottom of the screen if you can read them. What's the next question? Yes, next question.
The next question is, what is one thing you didn't expect from your transition? You have
Well,
to
I'll-
pick one thing.
I'll pick something because even though I'm not trans, there was one thing I didn't expect to see with Ben, and that was I didn't expect to see him become this confident man. I expected him to become a man. I didn't expect him to become a more confident, more assured, more in touch with himself man. I didn't expect that, and it's been a very beautiful surprise for me as his partner. There, now that gave y'all thinking time. Y'all should be ready now. Boom, go.
I'll say that I didn't expect for my anxiety and my anger to actually calm down once I started testosterone.
Yeah.
I do have bouts where I get a little bit irritable, but I've actually found that my irritability goes up. I'm getting close to time to do my shot, so my T levels are down.
Yeah.
So, apparently with my body chemistry, rather than the stereotype of testosterone making me more angry and more irritable, it made me more
Focused.
more chill, more focused.
You were about to.
Oh, I was going to add on to the confidence bit. Grew up really with a really timid nature, and transitioning non-binary, I put myself in a much more vulnerable position, and thought that was going to be just that much more nerve-wracking and scary, and that I'd become more timid as a result. I was just really afraid of that, and instead, I have felt so much more empowered, even though, from a systemic point of view, I'm in a position of more vulnerability. But it is mine.
Right.
I get to claim this space. This
Yes.
is mine. And I just was not expecting that.
I was not expecting in the slightest how much my world opened up. My entire life I'd been mostly a loner. I'd never let anybody close. Nobody really seemed to want to come close. Coming out and being me and having the confidence to show the world who I am I couldn't even tell you how many friends I have now. Total strangers. I've had deep, intense conversations with about my life or their life. People I just met. Which is not something that ever would have happened. You could have known me for 20 years and not known that I was bisexual or any fears I may have had because I was used to hiding everything. And I've learned that authenticity is incredibly magnetic, and I'm gonna keep riding that way. I'm gonna keep just
Yeah.
yes, I'm loving it. Being me is much better than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
I think I'll also add, I didn't expect to feel so much more in touch with my spirituality.
Yeah.
Even though that did entail leaving a church that I had been attending before. But yeah, feeling just that much as because so much of that for me is about being a whole person. Where at first I thought leaving a spiritual side of my life instead. I get to be much more authentic with whatever higher being I get to be connected with.
Exactly. I can't even list all of them. I mean, because literally my life has completely changed. I'll kind of piggyback on Susan. I never ever expected to be as outspoken and self-confident to be outspoken as I am now. If you knew me before, which nobody in this room did, Larissa did, I was really, really quiet, and I would never speak my mind. I was the person that hid in a room full of people. Like, please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me. Literally, I never. And I spent 15 years as an alcoholic and a drug addict and everything else. And now I just feel like I'm so. I look at my former life before transition as a former life. I literally look at. I'm living my second life now. That was my first life, and it didn't work. It was not working, and this is my second life now. I literally look at it as two separate people. Because that's who I am now. But I never expected for people to look at me and say that I was good looking, because I never got that before. I never got that before.
Yes,
But seriously, I never, when you start transitioning, you have this picture of your head of what you hope you look like. I never expected to look like I do now, ever. And thank you, Dr. Raphael, for my top surgery. He's amazing. My chest looks better than I ever hoped it would. But just everything in my life, everything. But also, I never expected to lose the people I've lost in my life, ever. Some of the people that I've lost, I never thought that I would ever lose those people, family members. And it's just, wow. But the people like you, the people I've gained, oh my God. The people that are in my life now are so real.
Yes.
They're just so real, and they're so genuine. I found my peeps. Yeah.
What you were saying made me think of another. I hadn't really explored much about my transition. Is that I never really expected to love myself.
Yes.
I expected to
Yes.
hate myself less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. There are a few things about my voice sounds a lot like my dad, and it's very triggering for me. I've just noticed that recently. That sometimes it sounds like my dad, and it's very triggering. 'Cause, that's one thing that's a trigger. But yeah, but I had the roid rage for a while when I first started transitioning. But yeah,
But I also had.
I don't have it anymore. But yeah.
I had more anger issues and anger/anxiety issues. Because I kind of lump them together, because when I have full attacks, I punch things.
I used to.
But like,
Yep.
because of the fact that like my anxiety is more under control and all of that stuff, the anger part of it also has calmed down. And because there's a lot more just emotional stability, and it's a combination of things, because I'm not just on testosterone. I am also on an antidepressant, anti-anxiety thing. But even when I had started the antidepressant, before starting the testosterone, I would still have, like, my panic attacks were still more often compared to after I started the testosterone. So I think it would be safe to say that part of my anxiety was around my self-perception and stuff like that, and by kind of syncing up all the things that needed to be synced up, it's made things more calm. So any additional like roid rage that could have potentially happened didn't happen, because I am so much at self-peace now.
Yeah, one thing that changed for me was that my whole life I was deathly afraid of heights. Deathly afraid. Wouldn't even climb on a ladder. And now I'm not. Now I'm not. And I think it's because, I mean, there may be, for me, I think it's because I trust my body now. I trust my own body now, whereas I didn't before. Because I hated myself so much. Now, I trust that I have the strength to do this. I trust that I have, the ability. It's odd, but yeah, about 2 years after I started transitioning, I wasn't afraid of heights anymore. Now I hate flying, but that's different. But I literally wouldn't climb on ladders. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. Now I'll run around on roofs. I'll do all that stuff. Yeah.
Didn't affect my fears at all.
And it brings up a point that
But
I
I
think a
didn't
lot of people skip, is that with all the like the anxiety, depression, etc., transitioning often may have an impact on that, but transitioning is not a cure for that.
No, absolutely not. You still have to do the work. Yeah. Just because you transition, just because you start those shots or those pills, is not a quick fix for everything. I had to do a lot of self work, even right before transitioning and within transitioning, to be the person I am now. I had to do a lot of work, and I mean that was part of the reason we started Trans-Cendence, because there weren't support groups out there that would work for me, or that there was nothing for Susan out there and nothing for our spouses. So we just had to build something that worked for us, a support system that worked for us. And I think that's what's helped that's what's helped me tremendously. I may be the founder in the ED of this organization, but I get just as much support as other people do.
You want to move on to the next question?
Sure, that's that.
By the way, hi,
So
Shauna.
Is Jonna on now?
Yeah, Shauna's on.
Hi, Jonna. Hi, Australia.
What's the difference between trans and cis life that isn't immediately obvious? So,
That's
I guess
odd
nothing about
question.
bathrooms, nothing about maybe social stigma, that sort of thing. Or at least maybe not an obvious
I need to see
thing.
I-
It's one I heard. It's one I've heard before.
Yeah. I think one of the differences being that you're more perceptive of the social expectations. Because we all know that there are social expectations, but you don't necessarily expect what you're actually going to be facing.
Mhm.
Because like there was one time that I went to a restaurant, and it was like after starting transitioning, and it was me and a female, and then we discussed that she was going to pay for herself, and we get up to the front to pay our tabs, because this was at Steak and Shake. We get up to the front to pay our tabs, and there's a couple next to us that are paying, and the guy turns to me and goes, "Nah, man, you gotta pay for the ladies. What are you doing?" And it was so surreal
Right.
of an experience, because it's something I've never experienced before in my life, and I've never even seen the cis guys that have been in my life that I've paid for, like paid for myself and their meals, and never seen them get that. So it wasn't something that I was expecting, but it was on top of that, having the woman that was with me telling him, "No, I'm fine with paying for myself," and he completely ignored her, because this was,
Of course he did.
this was a discussion between men.
Of course.
This was between bros. Yeah. Ugh. And
This is where
Me
man
none.
world is completely alien to me.
Right? It's completely alien to me too. I
Oh,
cannot
yeah.
stand it.
just the like the whole concept of the be mad,
Be mad.
like no.
He's
So-
we bring home food. You cook food. We bring home food.
You cook food, me bring food home. Yeah.
So we have 5 questions and 40 minutes.
Well, we're not gonna get to
So we may want to. Yeah.
One thing I was going to say though, one of the things that's really funny. This is funny about Susan and I. When we first started dating as a lesbian couple,
Yes.
when we went out to eat, because we're a lesbian couple, they would always put the check in the middle of the table, always, because they don't know which one to give it to, or they'll give it to the more masculine looking one, whatever. So they typically put it in the middle of the table. After transitioning, now I always get the check. I always get the check. It doesn't matter what restaurant we're in. It doesn't matter where we are. They always give me the check. Then I slide the check over to Susan, because she's the one who takes care of the bills. And they're looking at me like, I'm like, hey, she's in charge. You know, she wears the pants in this family.
Well, and I'll pull out my card, put it on the check thing, and we share an account, so it doesn't matter.
It's the
what
same
happens.
account.
But it's my card
Right.
with my name on it. And my name is Susan. That's obviously a female name. She will pick up the check from in front of me. When she brings it back, she puts it in front of him.
Yeah.
I'm like, excuse me, I don't think you can sign my card.
It's ridiculous.
It is hilarious.
We do have a question in the comments from Shauna.
Yes.
Oh.
Did you ever have to deal with people at work who used to ask you how and what to do, but suddenly they feel like they need to tell you how to do your job? And do you have any positive
Right.
way to deal with such coworkers?
You take that. 'Cause
No, I've been
have you ever had that?
insanely lucky. I was with my company for 5 years before I transitioned, and I had already worked very hard to make myself indispensable
Right.
and the person that everybody comes to.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't think there was an opening for anybody to do that.
Yeah. I will say from the opposite perspective, I transitioned on the job, and when I did transition from female to male, all of a sudden I'm getting promotions and I'm getting raises and I'm getting. And now, granted, I was just like Ginger. I made myself indispensable in that job. I was very good at my job. But did I get the promotions and stuff because I was male now, or because I'm really good at my job? It was really interesting that all of a sudden I was with that company for 5 years. I probably started transitioning about 1.5 years in, maybe 2 years in. And all of a sudden, within the next 3 years, I get 2 promotions and 3 raises. That's a little. And it was a very, very misogynistic run company. Very misogynistic run company. So all of a sudden, I'm one of the good old boys, you know. I just thought that was fascinating.
Well, I think, like, I'm not trans, but it seems to me that a lot of times when females are overlooked, it's kind of the way that the world seems to work. So sometimes you just have to point that out and say, excuse me, but I'm here and my opinions matter. I've had to do this a lot. I work at a church, so you can imagine how much female voices are
And the
heard.
entire staff of the church are female.
It doesn't
All
matter.
of them are female.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I mean, when
Yeah.
a guy wants to speak, a guy speaks,
Yeah.
period. And you're supposed to listen and do what they say. So I think sometimes it's just pointing out that, hey, you may not realize what you're doing, but you're not listening to me now. And I am the same person and the same employee, so you need to respect me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm making it more simple than it really is.
I don't think so.
Now, them-
Like I said, I'm not trans, so feel free, some other trans woman on the link, comment in case I'm way off base.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know that for me, like, because I'm also transitioning on the job, and I found a really interesting dichotomy that happens because if I'm in a meeting with a group of people who did not know me pre-T, they socialize with me as if I were a cis man.
Mhm.
So when I speak on a call or when I speak in a meeting, everybody else shuts up.
Mhm.
If I am in a meeting entirely with people who knew me pre-T, they still treat me as they did before I started transitioning. And for some people at my office, they say, "Oh, well, we don't care about gender, we care about your quality of work." And some of them show that in their actions.
Right.
Some of them don't. But it is one of those things where, regardless on whether people want to believe it or not, there is a difference between. I have a cat pet. There is a difference between how male coworkers are treated versus female coworkers, and especially in male-dominated jobs.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Especially in heavy labor, male-dominated jobs, because
Right.
then there's the perception of, oh, well, what can you do? You're a girl, type of thing.
Well, in the industry I worked in was a predominantly male industry. Quality inspection is predominantly male industry. So, yeah. Yep.
One going
Next.
back to the other one. One difference I've noticed between trans and cis life, and I've mentioned this before, is that there's things that I took for granted before transitioning that I can't now.
Like
And
what?
one of the big ones that I never would have thought of, even though it's perfectly obvious now, is holding hands in public.
Oh, yeah.
My partner and past partners and I, when it looked like a straight couple, you hold hands, you walk arm in arm, you do whatever you want. Now, we still hold hands, we still walk arm in arm, but we watch. And it's not just an act of love, it's now an act of love and defiance.
And safety.
And it's,
Well, to watch, yeah.
yeah, and I never would have seen that coming.
Whereas I went completely opposite.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
exactly.
Now I can hold Susan's hand in public and nobody looks twice at us.
Mhm.
Nobody. You know, and I will say sometimes I feel guilty because of that. I feel guilty now. I've told her many times that I feel guilty about that now. That, I feel like a traitor to the lesbian community or whatever, but
Well, and it
You
makes
know-
me invisible as a bisexual person, which is true for all
Right.
bisexuals in a relationship where it appears straight.
Right.
That my queerness is very much not on display.
But I use my white male privilege quite often. I use that privilege to talk and teach and get in spaces that other people couldn't get into, you know. So you have to use it where you can.
I'll admit that at work I tend to I still enjoy male fashion, especially when it comes to work clothes. And so I admit I use. I guess it wouldn't be male privilege is perceived as male privilege,
Right.
at work, because I just know it's like I can get stuff done faster as
Right.
As more of an administrator. So.
Yeah. Well, it's weird for me when we're talking about the things you didn't expect. I mean, being at Ace Hardware and Bubba is like, "Hey man, how you doing today?" And you know, somebody who would never even looked my direction before transitioning, and now he's treating me like I'm his long lost bud. You know, and I'm usually looking at him like, "Please don't talk to me."
We're at a craft place, and we're having that little. The thing you do when you're out with your partner and you're just kind of, going back and forth. Well, no, I don't think we need that. Well, yeah, we do need
Right.
that, whatever. And we're doing that, and this straight couple walks by, and the woman looks at me and goes, "Men, right?"
Yeah. It's so surreal now.
It's weird.
So
It's
surreal.
weird. Or they'll assume, that's the other thing, too. They'll assume, like, if I have a new blouse or a new outfit or something, they'll assume
Right.
I picked it out. Where 9 times out of 10, it's actually Finn who picks it out. He's way more fashion forward than I am. He really is.
Just not for myself. For everybody else.
That's
just
not
like
true.
myself.
He actually is a very snappy dresser on his own.
Anyway, so that was one of the things that I guess I just didn't expect, or the people that talk to me now and actually see me that would have either called me names before or sneered at me, or it's odd. And walking into a gay bar now and getting hit on by gay men. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, he gets hit on by gay women as well. It's a weird thing. So,
You just don't. You're like,
the best thing, what you should have said when you said about expecting? You didn't expect how, so he took a car one time we had to get it inspected.
oh yeah.
And being perceived male. They're like, we can't pass this car. The seatbelt is not working properly. This isn't going to work. And I'm like, he says, you need to take it and see if you have the same luck. So I did. I took it, passed just fine.
Yeah. The little school teacher. Down there.
Oh, hey, I have school teacher privilege. I
So,
look
yeah.
like a kindergarten teacher.
So I have lost some privileges.
So you lost that one. And clean bathrooms, clean public bathrooms.
I do miss that privilege.
Ugh.
Just
God, why
They're
are
not
men's
always
bathrooms so
clean, but
nasty?
we just have the dusty, weird flower arrangements in ours.
And the lavender smell of everything.
it's better than
It smells like her grandma's house.
it's better than walking into the stall and going, "Did you aim? Did you aim at all?
Yeah.
Did
Right?
you touch anything?"
Do I need to bring some Cheerios for you?
Okay.
Something that was surprising to me is bringing some intersectionality here. So, person of color, specifically Asian. I like my Asianness got a whole lot more fetishized.
Interesting.
When in non-binary or femme mode.
Oh, really?
Yes, so much more of just like suddenly everyone wants to talk about like, oh yeah, I've heard that like in Thailand there was a lady and just like, or the hijra in India, it's like
Right,
all that comes
right.
out, or just immediately it's like, oh yeah, we should do your hair up like a geisha and all this stuff. It was like, where did all this go?
Rein it in.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I didn't.
Oh my goodness.
It's because they got added after.
So we have a half hour left, but we have 4 questions, but I think
Some of
Pick
them
the
we've
best one.
probably answered
we
in.
have.
Yeah.
But it looks
Yeah.
like the last one, which I just recently added because I remembered hearing it at other panels, and it was always a big one. I think that's probably the most important of the last four, and that could easily take a half hour.
Oh yeah.
And that is, what do you want allies to know?
Oh yeah. I want allies to know. Please vote. Please, please vote. Seriously, we need your vote. Seriously.
He can be heard.
Oh yeah.
He may not be seen, but he is heard.
We need your vote. We need your vote. Please go vote. Thank you.
What were you trying to say?
Nobody's listening anyway.
Being allies in action and more than just allies in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful to have allies in spirit cheering us on, etc. But when you can actually do something for us, whether that's voting or I don't know, prompting people to use the the correct pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
So small actions to big actions. Take action as allies.
I had a very surprising moment of an ally in action from a particular coworker that I was not expecting, because of the fact that he is a Jehovah's Witness, and I kind of prejudged him on that. So I did not directly come out to him. I just kind of was like, he'll figure it out. Because I didn't want to have that conversation because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I have anxiety. And I found out late after I got the legal name change and was having that conversation with my whole team and all that. One of my other coworkers was having a harder time catching on to the new name. And so she called me by my old name, and he immediately interrupted her and corrected her and said, "It's Vienna." And that surprised me in a really good way. And it doing things like that does mean a heck of a lot, because it's a sign that you're a safe person to interact with. Like, if I know that you're going to correct other people when they're misgendering me or using the wrong name or anything like that, then that means that I don't have to have anxiety when interacting with you, and it bolsters our friendship rather than me slowly pushing you away because I'm like, I don't know how much you're okay with this type of thing. I'm sorry, did I lay on you wrong?
One of the things that I would say about being an ally is that be an ally when no trans people are watching. You know, I have a child who is very supportive of the trans community, and she will correct people in public. Like, she has had bosses that she's gone up to and like, no, that's incorrect. You're saying the wrong information. She corrects people on Facebook. She talks to people and says, no, that's not right. Even though she could, you know, she doesn't have to say anything. She's not trans. But her stepfather is trans and her sibling is non-binary, and she chooses to take a stand even when neither one of those are around, and it makes a huge difference because it's educating the public. It's being willing to step out and make that not okay. It's kind of like somebody once said, you know, if you're willing to let people tell racist jokes around you when there aren't people of color around you, then you might as well let them be told when people are around you, because you're being hypocritical. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that I would say, is if you can be a vocal ally in whatever form that takes, you don't necessarily have to give them a 10-minute lecture, but you can say, hey, that's not okay to talk about trans folk like that. That can be the extent of your sticking up for trans folk. But sticking up vocally for trans folk when they're not around is a huge part of being a good ally. That's what I think.
I think you're...
You think I'm right? Oh, yay.
And I you know, I did say, please vote. And I'm saying that seriously. I said it as a joke, but I'm saying that seriously. We as a community, even just LGBTQ community, is a small community. And right now, we are literally being attacked from every single front in our lives. Every single front. And they just made it worse yesterday. So, if you own a business, look at your policies. Call me. I will help you create and develop your policies to be inclusive. Train your employees. Have a no tolerance policy within your business or whatever it is, that you will not tolerate racist jokes or bigoted jokes or anyone being harassed, trans or gay or lesbian or non-binary. Stand up for your employees. That goes a long way. If you look at the averages and the statistics, if a trans person has one supportive person in their life, one person that they know they can talk to about anything and be supportive, that suicidal ideation goes down to like 2% instead of what is it now? 31%. That suicidal ideation will go down to 1.6%. To the
Just
national
what it is
average.
in the natural average.
It'll go down to the national average. So be supportive if you're a friend, or if you have, like yesterday, a manager from a hamburger place called me because she has a trans employee who she's concerned about that needs support. That manager didn't have to call us. She didn't have to get involved, but she did. And I thanked her for being an ally. That's being an ally, because she's concerned about one of her employees. So I talked to her about that company's policies, and they have amazing policies that are supportive. If your company is supportive of trans folks, let us know. Let us know, because we got folks that are constantly looking for jobs out here, and it's too hard for them to find a job right now because of the social intolerance that's happening. Things like that.
It's important. It's important to remember that acceptance is all well and good.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Right.
There's a huge difference between acceptance and affirmation.
Yep. And welcoming.
Yeah,
There's
it's like
difference.
Viano's example is acceptance is, okay, I'll call you by your name.
That's more tolerance than anything.
Affirmation
Yeah.
is, hey, you should call him by his name. Acceptance is, it's okay that you are who you are. Affirmation is, it's right that you are who you are.
Right.
And that is what everybody needs, not just trans people. Everybody needs to know that they are who they are supposed to be. It's our job as allies, whether that's me being an ally to your community or you being an ally to mine, to give that affirmation so that people can learn to give it to themselves.
And I'll even piggyback on top of that, and this is going to be unpopular, and I'm the guy that says the unpopular stuff. But if you are involved in a church and your pastor is up there saying bigoted and hateful things about a community that he knows nothing about, and your church is unaccepting, unwelcoming of anybody within the LGBTQ community, say something. Walk out. Because it's the religious community that pushes the intolerance. So we can no longer, our allies can no longer accept that and say, well, that's just my church. That's how they are. We can't accept that anymore. That's not acceptable anymore. We have to speak up. We need you to speak up. So, and I know that that's going to be unpopular. And I don't care anymore. I don't care. Because I've seen too many, I've been at the Capitol 4 or 5 times this past session, testifying before the Senate and before the House. And I watch these religious leaders call for violence against me. And that is not okay. That is not okay for a religious organization to call for violence against a community. That's not okay. So if your church is doing that or your pastor is doing that, speak up. Say something. Walk out. Do something. Because I got much better churches out there that would love you. Yep. And if they are, give them my number. Give them our number. I'm happy to come in and talk with them and help them develop policies and help them develop ways to be inclusive in their church. And not just a welcoming, but inclusive. Inclusive.
Yeah, we can't fight to get them to accept. We have to educate them to
Right.
accept.
All sorts of education. Yep.
And affirm.
Yep.
Gonna get slightly social workery here, since we have the question of like I will vote, but what can I do every day?
Okay.
In social work, we have a concept of micro, meso, macro. So micro is the individual. So think of the person that you're trying to be an ally to. What can you specifically do for that person? Even something as simple as use that person's name, use that person's pronouns, check in with that person.
Go shopping
How
with
are
them.
you? Go shopping.
Go shopping
Yes.
with them.
Yeah, bathroom buddies as
Right,
well.
right.
So, a lot of those are, and you can, again, anything that's small and to things that are really, really big. Meso, thinking small communities. So what can you do, like in your church or spiritual group? What can you do for your company policies?
Your child's school.
Yeah, the child's school, or navigating, like helping that person with the social transition with your circle of friends. So think about the people that are around the person you're trying to be an ally to. Then the macro level is changing, is making those changes on that societal level. Go out there and vote. Go out there and protest.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it's a lot of folks, of course, are afraid to say something and speak up. Of course, I know personally. I know lots of moms whose families were very involved in their church and their conservative religious organizations, and then all of a sudden their child came out as either gay, lesbian, whatever, and all of a sudden they weren't welcome at that church anymore, where they would be going there for years and years and years and years and years. If you have a friend that that's happened to, reach out to them. If you're a part of that church, reach out to them and say, I still love you, I'm still here for you, I'm still your friend, and what can I do to help? Because that person and that family feels like they have completely lost their entire circle. At that very moment, they feel like they've lost all of their people. So it's important to reach out and say, I love you, and I love your children, and I'm here for you. It's very important to do that. Very important.
And your children can come play with my children.
Exactly.
And the reach out, not wait to be reached out to.
Nope, reach out.
And then a call to us trans folk to make certain that we're taking care of our allies. To recognize that ally can be an identity in and of itself. That our allies can lose their communities, their spiritual communities, their families, etc. And at the same time, so many of us are just depleted and don't have the energy to take care of our allies. But then those of us that do, so like here, Trans-Cendence, like we
have a
here
support
for you.
group. We have a support group for you, and that's why Trans-Cendence was built. Trans-Cendence was built for the entire community, not just specific individuals within the community. It was built, and if we don't have it, we will build it. I can promise you that. We will build it. Will build a support system for you if we do not have it. Yep. Leo's about to fall asleep over here.
I'm partially that guy. I'm also like.
So what's next?
What? I have a question for the people who are joining us now and watching us later, and that's, how have you liked this format?
Yeah.
When we do this again, how can we make it better for you? And you can leave that in the comments. You can email info@transcendence.org.
Shoot, Facebook message.
Facebook message.
We should probably explain what we do plan on doing with this.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that we were talking about potentially doing some fun
Fun
fundraiser things. Things like watching a bunch of us play board games for 24 hours.
Oh, we came up with an even better idea.
Oh
No,
no.
no.
Like, you remember how Jerry Lewis used to do the telethon things?
Yeah.
Like that.
If you
Yeah.
have any suggestions on
Wouldn't that be fun?
things that you guys would like to see us do, if we do decide to do a fundraiser or a telethon type of thing.
I'm not wearing a dress.
I know that. Anything that the only requirements, of course, being that it has to be family friendly,
Safe.
safe. We
Legal.
don't want legal, like
Ethical.
Says the president.
Not horrible, like hazardous to our mental health and
Not
well-being.
hazardous
Or
to-
physical health.
yeah. You use your good judgment. Follow the platinum rule. Like.
That is going to become a thing.
So, because we would love to do things that y'all want to see.
Right.
If we're going to be doing a fundraiser, because that would be for you in exchange for hopefully helping us raise funds. So, yeah.
And also just generating stuff so that way we have information that's out there. We plan on splitting this up into different, like, smaller chunks YouTube videos, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not going to upload this in...
It's 4 hour entire.
the full 4 hours.
I
where,
couldn't watch 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, generally speaking, on
Yeah.
YouTube, when you have something that's that long of a format stream, people just listen to it in the background anyway.
Oh, and by the way, Shauna, if you're still watching, we want to try and get you on one of these as well. Just hint, hint, so you know.
It wasn't Shauna, it was Shauna.
Well, Shauna was also on at the beginning.
Oh,
of
okay.
it.
And
Well,
Shauna
when I
will
said
probably
earlier
watch
that
some of
Shauna
this.
was on, it was
Yeah.
Shauna
Yeah.
from our Fort Worth group.
And don't worry, that would be synced up with the Australian time zones.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to make her get up at 3 in the morning.
Yep.
And also we're going to be doing more QA style things. We have not decided on the frequency of it, but it will most likely be on Saturday of whatever frequency. So give us your feedback. Thank y'all for watching, regardless on if you're watching it live or if you're watching it after. We appreciate you, and we love you.
And if you want to support Trans-Cendence monetarily, we are always trying to raise some funds. You're welcome to go to our website, go to the donate tab. It'll also pop up occasionally, thanks to our web guru, Kason. And you know, $5-10 is always welcome for us. Always welcome. So also, Tarrant County Pride, we're going to be part of the Pride Parade. Come out and march with us. We're going to have a float. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just watch the website and the Facebook page, and you'll see all the details.
The cat is
And
down.
we will have the cat on the float.
No.
That would be funny to watch, though, because she does do good on a leash.
Oh,
So-
Lord.
I want to see your kitty on a leash.
Can we have the kitty in the bag? Because she was just in the bag.
As
Can
long as
we
it's
do
paperback.
Can we do a video that's just the kitty on the leash?
I'm sure we could.
So Tarrant
Like,
County
like
Pride is
those
October 4th and 5th.
Longer
Fifth
than-
and
5th and 6th.
Every
October
hour is
5th and
1
6th.
minute that the kitty has to stay on the leash.
What about you,
Would
B?
pay
Do
for
your
that.
plug too.
Huh?
B?
Oh,
Do your plug too.
Transfield Guide.
Transfieldguide.com. It's past my bedtime.
It's an awesome podcast.
If you want to help support my show as well, there are donate buttons on my website, transfieldguide.com. Same spiel. Every penny counts. You can either do through PayPal, you can either do recurring or one time. I do also have a Amazon wish list, although all the stuff on there is fairly expensive. But if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy me some new equipment off my Amazon wish list.
Woke up for
Yeah,
that
good
one,
luck
didn't
with that one.
Yeah.
you? Woke up for that one.
Buy me things. Love
Yeah.
it.
If we're doing plugs, I'll go ahead and mention
Yeah.
gingerslist.com.
Yes.
There's no donate button on there, so don't worry. But it's reviews of businesses written by transgender people for how they treat transgender people. And also, if you're looking for a safe restroom, you go on, you tell it, yes, use my location. It pops up a map of where you are. Any little black toilet icon is a business near you that has either a single stall, a family restroom, or is known to be trans friendly. And you just tap it, give you the address, give you directions. So I hope it helps.
And the reviews are either good or bad. So you can go in there and put a review, say for a doctor's office that harassed you.
Mm-hmm.
You can go out there and put a bad review so that nobody else has to be, has to be subjected to that. So, so you can put good reviews and bad reviews.
It's like Yelp for trans folk.
Yep.
We've had a suggestion to play Exploding Kittens.
Oh, yay!
Okay.
Yeah, Exploding Kittens.
Yay!
And Shauna said that she would be honored to be on the show, so I think we should put her on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shauna
Isn't
from
there
Fort
an
Worth.
imploding kittens now too?
There
There's
is,
also-
and we
I think
have it
there
as a
is.
cone of shame.
Yep. Oh, we
It is
do
a cone
have
of
it.
shame.
That's
We have
right. I
Exploding
forgot.
Kittens. I got it for Christmas.
Yeah.
Did we get it for
Yeah,
Christmas
we got it
from
for
one of my
Christmas.
kids?
And then there's one that's unicorns.
Oh, I haven't seen. Oh, I saw that
Ooh.
one. I saw that one.
What do you think about that, Carrie? You want that too? The unicorns? Want that? Carrie's the one who recommended Exploding Kittens.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because we were
Oh
just.
yeah,
we
Diana.
were-
Love.
Diana makes a great point. Smile.amazon.com. If you use
Yes, thank
Amazon.com and you instead go to smile.amazon.com, you can pick a charity, which can be us. Nudge, nudge, wink,
It's on
wink.
there. Nudge, nudge, wink.
It doesn't change your pricing at all. You still pay the same for everything, but Amazon gives the charity, which could be us, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, a small portion of each purchase.
Yeah.
If you start on smile.amazon.com every time you shop, yes.
Yes.
But once you've signed up for a charity, it will remind you, are you sure you don't want to go on Smile?
Right.
And then you just go yes, and then it'll put you right on there.
Right.
And if you use Chrome, I have an extension. If I accidentally type Amazon, the browser automatically redirects me to Smile.
Oh, cool.
Woo!
I didn't know that.
Nudge,
That's
nudge,
cool.
wink, wink.
Cool.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
If you ever want to, if you need to hit one of our meetings, or you just want to come and see one of our meetings, we have meetings in Dallas, Fort Worth, Mid-Cities, Denton, Oklahoma City. We have an online group in Enid, Oklahoma, and now we have Sydney, Australia,
And Austin.
and Austin, and Austin TCI as
yeah,
well.
Elliot was on here a little while
So,
ago.
so yeah, we are growing and expanding. If you need support in your area, there's nothing near you, give us a call. We will try. We will figure out a way to get you some support.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's also said bears versus babies.
Which I have.
Yay!
Cool.
I think it's made by that same company, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're great people.
Did you know that there's also like a twister board that's now like an industrial twister board? It's twice the number of spots now for a
Okay.
twister game.
So you can be antisocial in your twister.
Yes,
Be like,
you
"This
can go
is
and hide in the
my
corner
corner."
now.
Now, I just want to say, Carrie, I hope You've Got Crabs was the name of another game. Because the comment was, and You've Got Crabs. So I hope that was a game.
I'm pretty sure it is. It sounds like another game by the Oatmeal.
Awesome.
By the oatmeal, yeah.
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 Oh, and since I noticed just a little typo with the website, so it's not transcending.org. So it's a pun, transcend int. So transcendent, but it's Trans-Cendence International.
Right. You can put in transcend int and that .org, and that will come up too.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what's on the graphic.
Yeah.
that we have
Right.
Yeah.
And because I saw that Rebecca has the typo on hers. When I originally put my comment in there, it also had the typo. It's because the phone tries to autocorrect it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
He's not
Double check your typing. Otherwise, you'll end up at
Oh.
that Woohoo marketplace, whatever that is. I'm just reading what it says.
So we're just sitting there like blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. We'll
we
see y'all
don't
next
have
time.
crabs.
We do not